This section is going to cover solving the quadratic trinomials. And there are a few techniques. We'll start off with this real simple factoring technique, and then we'll move into completing the square and then quadratic formula. So let's begin. We need to refresh our memory about the zero product property. So the zero product property says if A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0. And you're probably looking at that going, well, duh, of course. Let's apply that to the product of two binomials. So let's have x minus 3 times the quantity x minus 7 equals 0. So that means that either x minus 3 equals 0 or x minus 7 equals 0. So what value of x would give us a 0 here if x equals 3? And what value of x would give us a 0 here if x equals 7? So that's how that works. So let's just take it a step further and say, hey, what if I have to solve a quadratic trinomial? Let's do an easy one. X squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. This is factorable, right? Factors of 10 that add to equal 7. We've got x plus 5, x plus 2. So that is the factored form of that trinomial. And so what value of x would make this factor 0? X equals negative 5. Or what value of x would make this factor equal to 0? X equals negative 2. That's the gist. Not a very challenging thing to do. Just make sure that you are able to factor and use all of your factoring techniques. Maybe we should do a hard one just for kicks before we leave because I've only been doing this for 2 minutes. So let's do a more challenging one. Let's solve x cubed plus 6x squared minus 5x minus 30 equals 0. I know it's not a trinomial, but I believe in you. So we've got 4 terms we should group, right? 4 terms means try grouping. We group together, GCF of the first 2 would be x squared. So that'll give us x plus 6. GCF of the second group would be negative 5. So that gives us an x plus 6 equals 0. So we've got x squared minus 5 and x plus 6 equals 0. So let's deal with this one first. What would x have to be in order to make this factor 0? X would equal negative 6. All right, now this one over here, what would x have to be in order to make this 0? Well, let's do x squared minus 5. X squared minus 5 equals 0. We can add 5 to both sides, so x squared equals 5. And how do you undo a squared? Inverse would be the square root. So x equals, we took the square root of a perfect square, so plus or minus 5. I know that was like super tricky, right? I'm sorry, square root of 5. So we had 3 options: positive square root of 5, negative square root of 5, or just negative 6. Okay, see you when we do completing the square.